This is elementary Greek. We have come now to lesson 5, and we're continuing in our journey as we work through Merkel and Plummer's elementary Greek or beginning Greek book. We've come now to an important milestone, which is how to deal or work with present tense verbs. Once we have a verb, and we have already learned the basic system for the nouns, we can actually start putting together sentences. This is exciting stuff. Okay, for a review quickly, we did look previously at the way that verbs could be configured. And we recognized first, second, third person, singular and plural. One of the things that happens in English is that as we work down through that same matrix, we'll recognize that a lot of times our verbs are just the same. Okay, so I'm looking down these and I made a mistake here, I can see now. I can have this configuration of the different verbs, and I would have I eat, you eat, he eats, we eat, you eat, they eat. Okay, let's mark out what's distinct or what's the same. I've got eat here. I've got eat all the way down there. The only one that is distinct is eats, the third person singular. And you can do this with various different verbs. As you go through the verbs, some first person, second person, third person, they'll be exactly the same. English verbs are not always distinct. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're the same. Okay, so how then do we work with Greek verbs? Are they all distinct? And the interesting difference here is that Greek always has, nearly always, has distinct forms for each one of the slots. If I'm learning, or we're learning in this section, the present tense, we will discover that for the present tense, there is a distinct ending for the first person singular that is not the same as the second or the third or the plurals. Each spot is distinct. And that has an interesting implication. In English, in order to know whether it's I, you, or them, I need to include a pronoun or some other semantic indicator in the propositions to know which one we're talking about. Very often in Greek, I can just put down the single verb, and the verb alone will be sufficient indicator, whether we're talking about a first person or a plural or something else. That's actually kind of handy when I'm working through my verbs. And what that would look like now if we were going to learn the actual endings, and you'll need to learn these endings. The endings are these for the present active indicative. Okay, you don't really need to worry about the word indicative right now. For your purposes right now, everything is an indicative. But, and I'll talk about active in a moment, but you just need to know this is the present tense. The present tense endings, or the endings that you need to memorize, the chart that make each verb distinct, are these oase, omeneta usi. Oase, omeneta usi. Now, I can comment on this right here. This is what I've told you about before. It's called a movable nu. And what it means is that in some cases, this will be usen. In other cases, usi. You're not writing Greek. All you're doing is just you're encountering it and reading it. Okay, so whether the author uses usi or usen, so long as you can recognize it, you'll be fine. You can understand what's going on. Okay, so you'll need to memorize that chart. You have to memorize it cold. Oase, omeneta usi. Oase, omeneta usi. Walk around, say it 1,000 times until it's clear in your mind, until you can rattle it off in your sleep. For my students in the past, I've told them you should be able to wake up in the middle of the night, half dead, half asleep. Somebody shakes you awake, and they lean over you and they say, present active indicative, and you answer oase, omeneta usi. Okay, memorize it like that. This is the second chart you want to memorize, and I'll explain the difference here. This is the middle passive chart. Same process here. You just need to memorize it cold. Mai sai tai metha stun tai. Mai sai tai metha stha. It's hard to say, but it's just a S-T-H. Stha in Thai. And one thing I do need to tell you about this, it's an oddity, and you'll have to trust me for now. You'll see with time how this works itself out. But the psi form is going to normally contract, and it's normally going to turn into an eta iota subscript. There are reasons for it. for now, just memorize it. And what I would encourage you to do, you really should memorize the chart as I have it written, my, psi, tai, methista, and tai. I encourage that because actually it's easier, my, psi, tai. It's not really that much extra trouble to learn this form. And then you will have to remember to convert it to the eta iota subscript. But there's going to be a future chart where it stays psi. So you either learn it now or you learn it then. And I would encourage learning it now. Just do that my, psi, tai, and then just remember that it's normally going to contract down to an eta iota subscript. Okay, and if you find that goofy, good news, you're in good company. Every Greek student has always found that goofy, a little annoying, somewhat infuriating. Okay, these two charts stand side by side. This is the active, the middle, and the active middle slash passive. If you recall from before, an active verb was just one, something like the configuration. I eat. I'm going to do this as linear because I've been teaching you to do it that way. So I am eating cheese. Okay, and that analysis, if you follow that, here's the verb standing in the center. Okay, I am acting. I am the one doing this. I am eating cheese. That would be an active sentence. I told you before that a passive sentence, I am being eaten, is one where the action, right, this verb, is being done to the subject. Passive sentences, I might be the subject, it's happening to me. I'm passive, it's being done to me. Okay, and the middle stands in the middle. And so I could do something for this example. I am eating cheese for myself. Now that's a really odd, semantically, like meaning, it's an odd comment. So whatever. This is middle. And it does, if you look at it, kind of combine both of these. I am eating for myself. There's kind of a sense in which it's a reciprocal. It's kind of combining the active and the passive onto one. Okay, that's the grammar or kind of the explanation in terms of meaning for what these things are. But what you're learning in this lesson, I'm just going to clear this out of the way so we can be a little less messy. What you're learning for this lesson is how to do those. And so the first set I gave you is represented here. It's the active. And the second two I just gave you are represented here. It's the middle slash passive. Why middle slash passive? If I see a verb using this chart, it could either be middle or passive. And context just has to help you decide. Commentators will discuss it. Commentators will look at it and say, this example, I think it's active, I think it's middle, and others say, oh, I think it's passive. And there's a longer discussion about what controls those. For now, you can just know that it could be either one. Okay, how do we actually implement this? Like, how do we put this onto a verb? Let me show you the verb that we'll be using as our paradigm verb. The verb is luo. And you actually already know how to do this. Good news. Because I told you at one point that the vocabulary forms are always going to be the top leftmost chart. The top leftmost slot in the chart, I should say. Well, this is my vocabulary form luo. And if you look at the ending, it's matching omega ending, omega ending. What then is my stem for this verb, and where do I start? And the answer is my stem is lu. Oops. Lu is my stem. And if I now wanted to proceed putting together the verb, I'll just do that. Let's run down the chart. Luo, lu, stem, ace, lu, stem, a, lu, almond, lu, eta, luusi. Here that chart is written out completely. And what I'm just doing, I like this expression of things. It helps stuff stay clear in my mind. In order to do this, I use stem, which is just take the luo that you memorize and cut off the omega. Your verbs are almost all going to come that way. Cut off the omega. And then start putting on the primary active endings, which is what I just taught you. Oase, ameneta, usi. Memorize that code. Okay, luo, lues, lue, luamen, lueta, luusi. There. You've learned the present tense in the active voice. Present active. And if I wanted to translate down these, this would say, I am loosing, you are loosing, he is loosing, we are loosing, you guys are loosing, they are loosing. Turns out that loo sounds a lot like loosing. Okay, back up to this one. This one has a little bit of complexity to it. I've got the my sai tai methodist and tai system. And I will combine that set of endings with the stem. So I will do something like what I did above. I'll put stem plus primary, middle, passive endings. That's this set of endings. Okay, so I'll put those together. But there is an issue here if you just process out that each one of these starts with a consonant. Now, luo works out all right because it ends with a vowel. But a lot of other words don't. A lot of other words end in consonants. And what I'll end up with is consonant on consonant. It's like steel on steel. It just doesn't work out. And the clash of consonant on consonant leaves me in a situation where I need something, kind of think of the grease or something in between, to make these two work together. I can't just put steel on steel. I need something that links them up. That link is going to be called a connecting vowel. And the connecting vowel stands in the middle, puts the two together, or fuses them, or helps them work together, so that I can read smoothly down the word. Okay, how I do the connecting vowels is that any word that, any of the endings that begins with a mu or a nu will use omicron connecting vowels. Let me write that out for you. If my ending, as in my sai tai, methodist then tai, if my ending begins with a mu or a nu, use an omicron. Okay, let's look at our chart of endings. And if I just run down these endings, I've got my, this is not a mu or a nu, that's not, okay, I've got metha, and I've got ntai. And so if I just go down those, circle them again, sorry, then this one will use an amai, amatha, ontai. Okay, so if it uses, or if the ending begins with a mu or a nu, my, metha, ntai. Mu or nu, put an omicron. If that seems hard to remember, good news is in our alphabet, lambda, mu, nu, you have an xi, omicron. Or in the English alphabet, M, N, O. Hey, they all hang together. So a mu or a nu will have an omicron connecting vowel. Everything else use an epsilon. Everything else uses an epsilon. And if I go back then up to my chart, I would expect then I'll have an epsilon, an epsilon, an epsilon. Okay, I've told you that this is that weird exception. You just do the eta iota subscript. But I put that into implementation here, and I'll do here stem plus connecting vowel plus primary endings, lu, stem, my ending, okay, look at the ending, it's a mu, that's going to be M-N-O, an omicron, let's put an omicron, luamai. Lue is just a random raw memorize it. But here I've got stem, ending, this is not a mu or a nu, so I'm going to use an epsilon connecting vowel, etai, luetai. Lu stem, metha ending, MNO, okay, so my connecting vowel will be omicron, luamatha. Lu, sthe, and this sigma, not a mu or a nu, so I'm going to use epsilon, lu, sthe. Lu stem, ntai, that nu, that's one of my MNO letters, so this will be an omicron connecting vowel. I'll end up with luantai. Okay, like all language things, this sounds initially so arcane and frustratingly inconsistent that it seems like it's impossible that you could ever get this into your head and make it work. It'll come. So start with memorizing the my sai tai, methodist then tai above. And from there, actually practice a little bit. You do this a couple of times, and it'll start to gel. Okay, what I would encourage for just pedagogically, how to do this without driving yourself bananas. I would just encourage you to sit down and actually practice writing out the forms. Okay, memorize your chart cold. Mai sai tai, metaslen tai, oase, ameneta usi. Memorize it cold until you could just say it again, almost in your sleep. And then sit down with a blank piece of paper and practice writing out stem plus ending, stem plus connecting vowel plus ending. Okay, write those out. And I would wager that in a couple of times around, across maybe a day or two, you'll be able to get these fast enough that it makes sense, that you're able to just put them down, write them, and remember them. Okay. In any case, these are the way that the verbs work, and you want to have these in your head well enough that you're able, as you proceed or work with the language, you're able to sit down and recognize these verbs. And as I've said before, positive encouragement with all of this. Yes, it's helpful to remember or to be able to write it out, but if you see that ending and you recognize the ending, that really is enough in this language. You don't need to write Greek, you just need to be able to recognize it. So the ability to recognize these endings will get you most of the way. If you even got rusty on how the connecting vowels work, eventually some of that's just going to come from seeing it. And recognizing it is sufficient. All right, that's it for this lecture, and congratulations. Once you do some of this, you have now actually put together some basic tools to do some simple reading. I'll just give you one example here so you can see a little bit about how these verbs work. And I've highlighted the verbs for you that are present tenses. Okay, so you can recognize some of these. Grapho is the word like graphic or calligraphy, writing. Echo is a verb meaning I have. And so if I put this in context, my children, I am writing these things to you. Okay, so you can see the form grapho, which is that top leftmost spot. It's the omega, oase, ameneta usi, the omega. I am writing to you. And you can actually see that working within a sentence as you've just learned it. I'm writing this to you in order that you should not sin, and if someone should sin, we are having an advocate, a paraclete. Okay, look at this, analyze it for a second based on the chart you've just learned. Can you find the place on the chart? Pause the video actually. Find the place on the chart, identify what we're looking at here on the chart or according to your present active indicative chart. Okay, hopefully you found it. This is the first person plural. We are having an advocate. This is the verb to have, and first person plural, we're having an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. Okay, last here, I guess I'll do one more after that. He is the propitiation for our sins. And this is the form that you learned last time. Emi e este. Remember, it can have a movable nu. It does in this case. Esten. So it's the third person singular in your chart that you learned before. It just means is. So he, subject, is verb, the propitiation for our sins. Not for ours only, but also for the sins of the whole world. And in this, gnosko, like Gnostic, is the word for knowing. Can you look at the form according to your chart? And according to your chart, what form am I looking at here with gnosko? Okay, just find the spot on the chart. Okay, if you didn't pause the video, you can pause it now. This is the first person plural. So it's in that top right spot. First person plural, it's we. And in this we are knowing that we have known him if we should be keeping his commandments. And put all of that together, you actually now have the tools to do some of this basic reading. You've got to learn a lot of vocab. You've got to deepen your set of different verb tenses and so forth. But this is a pretty good start on this pathway.